Hola, hola, mi gente. Welcome to another episode of Wine and Chisme. I am beyond excited, like beyond excited, because I have somebody who I have connected with before, who I have the utmost respect for, who I just love. Denise Soler Cox. How are you, Denise?
I am so great. And I wanted to wish you a happy six podcast birthday, right? Am I right?
Thank
It's been
you.
six
Yes,
years.
6 years.
Congratulations. That's such a big deal. It's such a big deal. And I'm
Thank
totally in
you.
the celebratory mode with you.
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy because I remember when I started right before the pandemic, right before everybody and their mothers, cousins, nieces, cats, had started a podcast. And
Uh-huh.
to be on this journey, and it's a lot of what we're going to talk about too, but just to be
Yeah.
on this journey in regards to um creating this space and talking and being just honestly having so many people want to come on and share their
Oh,
story and
yeah.
share it with me, because you have a lot of people, can go anywhere to share their story. So to be a place where people trust that not only am I here because it's important to me, but that they trust that I'm going to do service with them and their story. And that is such an honor that I don't ever take for granted.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very obvious to me why everybody wants to be on your podcast and why people would feel deeply comfortable sharing their story with you. You definitely have that trusted prima vibe, like the trusted, like you feel like, okay, she can hold it and she'll respect me for sharing it. And there's just like a deep kind of like groundedness that you kind of emit. And so I'm not surprised that many,
Oh,
including me. So I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you because we actually met through, I think, Threads, right? It was through Threads. I had
Yes.
posted something, you reached out to me. Like, I know that there's a love-hate relationship with social media. I have it as well. So many of us have it. But the beautiful thing that comes from it is that you get connected with people you wouldn't otherwise get connected with. You put something out there and somebody's like, I see you, I want to help you, let's
Yeah.
connect. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things, and that's how we got connected. And now finally we get to have you on the podcast because you are just, let me read your bio. Or it's long. I'm not gonna read all of it, but I'm gonna read a lot of it. But I'm
Okay.
also going to, and then we'll share the wine we're drinking. If you're drinking wine, I see you have some
No,
agua there, but
this is vodka. I'm just kidding. This is water.
I was gonna say, oh girl, you go. And then we'll get into all the chismes. So
Okay.
Denise is Denise, after going from a stay at home mom to an award winning activist filmmaker, top 100 podcaster, and sought after international speaker, uses her experience to tell inspiring stories with a single purpose: to transform how we think and speak about culture, identity, and what it means to belong. In 2020, Cox was recognized as a featured host by Apple Podcasts North America for her podcast, The Self Ish Latina, which has listeners in 32 countries. Been invited to speak on over 400 stages, including 2 TEDx talks, and has worked with some of the world's most recognized brands like Ralph Lauren, Amazon, Progressive, Microsoft. We could go on and on. Through her speaking, her award winning film, Being Enyé, an upcoming book, What Will They Say? She shows brands how to build belonging at scale and help individuals liberate themselves from the beliefs that keep them from truly belonging to themselves. She's appeared as an expert on NBC Nightly News, and her work has been featured in Forbes.com, CNN, PBS, NBC Latino, Chicago Tribune, Telemundo, Univision, Fox News Latina, Hola, and the Huffington Post. She was recognized as 2023 MPI President's Award recipient, is a distinguished member of the fourth cohort of the Stanford Latino Leaders Entrepreneur Program, and was the National Association of Latino Independent Producers 2017 Fellow. She was also honored to be selected in the 2018 recipient of the Bridge Builder Award in Education from the Virginia Hispanic Chamber. I went ahead and read it all because it's just so, you just got to, you know.
I'm note to self, I'm gonna like make sure just to share like a shorter one from now on. But I really appreciate you reading the whole thing, and I hope that we
I just
didn't
was like,
exhaust anybody.
no, the funny thing is oftentimes, sometimes people have a really long bio, and I'm really good at like cutting it. Like as I'm reading it, I'm like, okay, I can take this out, blah, 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 like as I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But as I'm reading, I'm like, I don't like, I want to share all of this. I want to
Oh,
share
thank
all of
you.
the whole thing. But I get it because I have a short, like, I have a full bio and a short bio as well.
Yes.
So I'll send
Yes.
both to people, let them decide what,
Yeah. I'll do that from now on. Promise.
Girl, you have to do that with me. I want to hear all the things. I want to share all of the accomplishments that you have.
Thank
Um,
you.
you know, normally when I start, I like to add, oh, before we get started, I know you're drinking agua, so let me share
Yeah.
what I'm drinking. I am drinking this from Casa Martinez Wines. It's
Ooh.
their Bonitas 2023 Chenin Blanc. I have not had this yet. So this is the first. I think I had a taste of it, but this is
Uh-huh.
the time I like popped the bottle. So
Ooh.
this is truly the first drink that I'm
Oh
having.
my
So
God.
salud to you. Isn't that beautiful?
Salud.
Doesn't that look so
Salud.
pretty? It's just like,
Yes. I want some.
oh, it smells so good. It smells very green, like very grassy, but I love that smell.
Mm, me too.
And
Me
then it
too.
also has like a little bit of apple in the back. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, that's really light and crisp. I didn't want to open up a red right now, even though it's a little chilly. I was just like, you know what? I kind of feel like I'm in the mood for a white. I got work to do. I don't, if I open a cab, I might be a little bit too ooh, at the end. Especially since I haven't eaten lunch really. I just had some
Oh,
chips and salsa to put in my belly
ooh, yummy.
while, right before, just so I had something in my stomach. But no, this is beautiful. They're Casa Martinez wines are out of um, the Napa area, and they are Daniel, the owner, is just such a lovely human.
Oh.
And his daughter is I always forget, it's not spinal bifida, but she has like a degenerative thing and she
Mm.
can't really speak. She's wheelchair chair bound, and they have this one, I think it's a Pinot Noir that called Camila, that all like the
Oh.
proceeds of that go to help pay for their daughter's care and stuff like that. It's really
Oh.
beautiful. And
Oh, that's
yeah. So
awesome.
it's not only like a beautiful tasting wine, but the purpose behind it and what they do is it's just really lovely as well. So
I love
thank
that.
you,
I love
Daniel.
when, yeah, thank you, Daniel. I love when things have a story behind them, right? It makes everything so much more meaningful to know the story.
Yeah, I think, and that's why I love doing, making sure we're featuring the wine brands as well and the vintners, because so often they have just this story of, we grow up often. I mean, I grew up wine, like thinking wine is bougie. So many of us grow up thinking wine is bougie. And then you realize like it's not. And for a very big portion of the Latino communities within those areas, they're the ones who they are the ones who are caring for the grapes. They're the ones who are, tilling and pruning and making sure everything is happening. Oftentimes they're the winemakers themselves. And um the faces don't necessarily look like ours, right? The owners.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to be in a position to say, hey, like we not only, make the wine, right? But now there's these owners who they're the face of it as well, and they are from our community and ways to support, being able to drink wine and support our community at the same time. So
Wow, that's awesome. I love that. I love it, love it, love it.
So, like I said, normally we kind of go into how people grew up and everything, but in your book, you actually taught. And now, let me just say, I'm very fortunate. Denise sent me the like table of contents, the intro, and the first chapter of this book. Denise, and she hasn't heard what I think yet. This is the first time she's hearing
I'm
what
like
I think.
dying. I'm dying to hear.
I'm like, is it like the let's go to commercial? We'll
Now
find
let's
out
go to
next.
commercial. Let's go to a 5 minute segment on underwear and then we'll come back.
Okay. I was crying during the intro. I was tearing up
Oh,
during
oh
the
my
intro.
gosh.
Ooh.
Wow.
And I saw a lot of myself in the first chapter.
Uh-huh. Oh.
And ooh, just thinking about it. And it was so beautiful. And I was going, oh my gosh, if this is the first chapter, I cannot wait to read the rest
Oh.
of this book.
Oh my gosh.
And when we first connected, you sent me the link to your documentary Project Enyé,
Mhm.
and it is such an amazing documentary. Will you share a little bit about like how you could, I know that there's some really heavy things. Girl, you were so vulnerable, like boom, right off the bat. That
Yeah.
vulnerability that you showed in chapter one. That's why I was like, whoa, like
Uh-huh.
she is putting it out there. And that is so hard. So if you could share a little bit of your backstory and how kind of that led into Project Enya, and then we'll go into how and what you're doing with the book.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to acknowledge you. Thank you for being like the type of person that I would want to share the first chapter with because I this sounds totally crazy because I know when a person writes a book, like the whole idea is for people to read it, like success will be measured by how many people want to read it and want to buy the books. And also, as you know, like I literally took my heart and I put it, I mean, I know that that's like cliche, but my heart is on this page. It's all over the book. I did not hold anything back, I'm and there's really only been one other person outside of the editorial team at Simon and Schuster that has read the entire book from beginning to end, and that is the person who's overseeing the translation of the book, a very dear friend of mine, and then you. And so you now are the first person to read to begin to read the book in the first chapter. So I had this feeling on my walk this morning, and I know we have that in common. We both walk in the mornings, and I was like, I know we've had this planned for a minute, and I had this thought, oh my gosh, I should send her the first chapter. And so thanks just for being the type of person that I would feel safe to share, and and yeah, and so I'm going to share about the film and how it connects to the book and why I decided to share just so like vulnerably so soon and so and really like that the entire book is what you just read is like that. And so I'm going to share it inside of this framework that a Harvard professor has created. And that Harvard professor, his name is Marshall Ganz, and he worked with the farm workers movement, with Cesar Chavez. He worked with Dolores Huerta. He worked with the Obama campaign, the first Obama campaign, and helped them come up with the Yes We Can. That whole thing, he was standing right next to them and part of that whole organizer, that whole movement. He was a part of that. And there was a student of his that had reached out to me years and years ago and said, I want you to know I'm a grad student at Harvard and I'm taking this class with Marshall Ganz. And there's a part of his framework called the story of us. And I did an assignment inside of I did an assignment about the story of us, and I used your film to as an example of the story of us. And I was like, oh my gosh, like thanks for telling me. And what is the story of us? What is this? And so I did some research at that point. She explained it to me. And then I was fortunate enough to go to Harvard and actually spend some time with him and interview him and get some perspective. And so when I pitched this film, the idea for the film happened in a bar, and this story has been told a million times. And I was in Miami, and I got the idea really in a moment of very low point in my life when I felt very alone in the 90s. And I realized that I was that my friends that were sitting around the table, all first gen from some, the parents from a Spanish speaking country, that we all had the same experience. Now, this was before YouTube, this was before the internet, so it was very like isolating and we really, I didn't really have a sense that other people had the same lived experience. Now, we all know that all first gens, we all pretty much go through the same thing. But back then I had no idea. And so that night at the bar, when my friend said, do you ever feel like you're not enough, is how he said it. Like you're not Latino enough, your Spanish isn't good enough, blah, blah, blah. We all know, we know the drill, right? And
Yeah.
so that was the night that I said that I had the idea to make the film. And then 17 years passed before I had the guts to really do anything about it. And I ended up pitching the idea to a local Oscar nominated film producer who decided to make the film with me. Now, what that has to do with Marshall Ganz and this thing called The Story of Us is that it's a three-part framework. And the first part is the story. And this is how you explain movements. Okay. And so it's how movements can be understood. And so there's a story of me, and we can look at it like, okay, my story of feeling alone, and then realizing that I wasn't alone at the bar with my friends, right? And then this decision that I made to make this film, and then waiting 17 years because I didn't feel Latina enough, is what the truth was. And then one day I was like, what am I waiting for? Like, this is the only thing I want to do, and nothing had changed. And so I decided I would do whatever it took for however long it took until I could make the film. And 2 years from that point, the film was made. And when people started watching that film, that would be, even though I tell part of my story in that film, I also tell our story. And I interviewed many, many people, over 100 people actually, I interviewed for the film. And that film could be described as the story of us. And so it's like the story of the diaspora, we can say, even though I focused on the first gen experience. And and what happened after that film is that there this phenomenon happened, and I call it the line of secrets and dreams. And so whenever the film would be screened somewhere, or whenever I would do a keynote, because I became a keynote speaker after that, and I've done over 400 events since the film came out, a line would form to talk to me. And I love that line because that's where I would get to know the people in the audience and hear whatever they had to say. And invariably, one, two, or three people would always say, would share a secret with me. And I didn't feel as if I had earned the right to hold their secret. I felt like I didn't give enough to you in this film, or I didn't say enough in on the stage to earn the right to hear the depth of the secrets that were being told to me. And I thought those secrets were like, oh, that just happened. That was just a weird fluke. Except for that it happened and it kept happening and it kept happening. It happened so many times. It still happens. And at one point, I realized this is like a responsibility. I feel a responsibility to do something with this. And at that time, I had been entertaining writing a book and had an opportunity to write this book. And as I started exploring this idea of secret keeping, I stumbled upon this idea. I stumbled upon taboos, and specifically the taboos that are kept that we have in our culture, right? And when people outside the culture, when they hear about my book, they're like, "Well, Irish people have taboos too." And I'm like, "Yes, I understand that, but since I'm not Irish, I'm not writing the book for anybody outside of our community. What I'm familiar with
Right.
is our taboos, right?" And so, like, the one saying I heard more than any other saying was "los trapos sucios," and so we all know it. We all know it,
Yeah.
right? And also many many people would say, "Well, because of lo que dirán," and they would just say things like that, but like thousands of people. And so as I was exploring these
And even
ideas,
sometimes it wasn't said, it was just implied, right? Like it was
yes,
just implied. And you know from a young age what, like, my parents never said that, and not to say that like there was a, but there was, it
Hmm.
was always implied, and I think like what happens in the family stays in the family.
Yes. Yeah, and you know what you're supposed to talk about, and you definitely know what you're not supposed to talk about. And you don't need that saying to know what you're not supposed to talk about. It's just
Right.
baked in, it's baked into how we're raised, regardless if we speak Spanish or not. It's part of the value system of the culture. And so I'm writing the book and I realize, wow, there's an incredible connection between these taboos and what we're not supposed to ever do, and the connection between that and the secrets that we keep. And I realized the last piece of the framework. So there's a story of me and my journey, right, that I told in the film. And then when people saw the film, that was a story of us. Like, wow, like that is our shared story, right? And the shared story is not feeling ni de aquí ni de allá, not feeling good enough, not
Yeah.
Latino enough or American enough. That's like the shared narrative. And that's what people felt when they saw the film. Like, wow, someone's finally captured that feeling in a film. And not like other people haven't, but this was one of the first films that really captured it. It came out 10 years
Well,
ago.
really centered around that too. You know,
Yes.
that's when I had the honor to watch it, um that was something that I felt, because also like I feel like this extra thing because I'm second gen, right?
Uh-huh.
My first language is English. Although both of my parents spoke Spanish, they were always like, they would get in trouble when they went to school, so they didn't want that for us. So I always felt like this, like, extra layer of,
Mhm.
like, who am I? Because I still felt very, like, growing up, we were still very close to our culture with the exception of language, but there were some things that were different, right? Because I
Yeah.
was second gen. So I didn't have the weight of translating things for my parents. I didn't have, but I still had the weight of being the first Latina daughter. And I didn't.
Mhm.
So it was like, so for the longest time, I think really until my 20s or even 30s, I still felt that, like, am I Latina enough, because I Spanish is not my first language, or I don't have, I know I have family in Mexico, but there's several cousins down, so I don't even really know who they, like, it was just all of these things. So it was it was like an extra layer, and I don't know how, I don't hear a lot of second gens talking about that. And so
Right.
but I really related to what you put, even though I'm not a first gen. I really related to those stories because I still felt it, and then it almost made me feel even more guilt. Like, I felt even more guilt, like, because I didn't have to translate for my parents. And it's like this very weird thing that I feel like is not talked about either. But I loved everything that you did talk, like, in Project and yet talking about those things, because I think whether you're first, second, or third generation, if you're still close to your culture, you feel that.
Yes, absolutely. And the thing is, just because we don't translate language doesn't mean we don't translate culture. Because English was my first language. The way I define first gen is born here, at least one parent from a Spanish speaking country. And so my mother knew English, but oftentimes I was translating culture. So a lot of jokes. I remember as a kid, my mom would not understand because they don't translate, you know? And so there was a lot of translating culture to her that, that was where the translation came. And then, yeah, I didn't realize that so many people would relate to the film. I didn't realize it would be relatable. And I was delighted to learn that multiple generations of the diaspora related to the film. And then what happened was it bounced outside of the culture and into more, what I say, a more diverse audience, which is people other than the Latino community and people from all over the world who would reach out to me and say, I'm not Latino, but I totally relate. My parents are from another country from the one that I was born in. And that's when it became, it just exploded all over the world. And, people wanted to watch it and have me come and speak about it from everywhere. And so what kept captivating me though was when women would come up to me. Now I've been invited to like Fortune 500 companies conferences that they hold, and there's never a lot of Latinas there, right? And because our representation is really not, it's like not where,
Yeah.
hopefully it will be soon, but like it's just like not there so much. But the Latinas would always find me, and they would find me on that line of secrets and dreams and share their secrets. And when once I started synthesizing that, that just happened so many times. And what they were sharing with me were the secrets that I chose not to share in the film. And I made the film with an Oscar nominated producer. He wanted me to share more. He wanted me to divulge more. But there was a line that I had, and I said, I won't tell certain stories. I will just won't. And they were because those were taboo. I know those are the things we don't ever talk about. And the things that I did talk about,
Absolutely.
like I honestly felt like I shouldn't have said some of the things that I said, to be honest. And that was nothing compared to what I share in the book. And the reason that that's important is because I saw myself in the faces of the women that were sharing these secrets. And so it's not like, oh, these women shared secrets and so I decided to write a book about it. No, it's they shared these secrets, and then they used that as a reason why they weren't doing something, like, this happened. And so like, I never, here's what I really want to do with my life, or I'd love to write a book. I'd love to quit my job and go do this. I'd love to start this business. I'd love to, like, they would share something really like that they wanted to do and accomplish. But then there was this secret that was in the way, and this way that they felt damaged and like they were broken. And they were trying to convince me that because of this is why they can't have this life. And that broke my heart. And after a while, I realized, wow, like this is urgent. And so the third part of the framework is called the story of now. And the story of now is the urgent story of us. So it's the shared experience and the reason why we must talk about this now. And so that is to me what the book is about is, hey, I know there are all of these things. I mean, it's so cliche to say now more than ever, right? And like, our community is under siege. We are being
Yeah. I
hunted.
mean, the
I
sense
mean,
of urgency is beyond at this point.
yes. And so finding agency, having a book, that's my book. And there's a breadth of books, there's a breadth of work that people can reach for to find certain ways to feel empowered and to connect with their to connect with their power. Power is very important to me, and especially powerlessness, like that experience of not feeling power. And what I want this book to do is to remind Latinas specifically of their power and to help them make the connection between these taboos that feel invisible, that create these belief systems that make us believe lies about ourselves. The number one being that we're broken or that we're not enough. And
Yeah.
after she reads like the book, I want her to feel unshackled. I want her to remember this woman that she was before she decided she couldn't do that thing she really wanted to do or be that woman that she wanted to be.
Yeah. I think that there are so many, like you said, shared experiences and they're shared in different ways, right? It's not necessarily the exact same experience, but the feeling of what you can or cannot do is shared, and the feeling of what you're being told. When you're talking, like a lot of the stuff, like you said, kind of stems from Project Enya, but really goes into a deeper. I mean, like I said, I just read the intro and chapter one, and I could see that the thread that is connected. When you started, when you started Project Enya, how was your, like, how were you viewing yourself at that point? And coming out of that, obviously, like, what what was there a transition? And during that, when that was happening, were there times where you felt like you were failing, whether it was as a Latina, as a storyteller, as a wife, as a, like did you feel times where you're like, I am drowning, I am failing, and I don't know if this is going to even happen?
Yes. Are you, I don't know. You must be a mind reader because yes, and I will tell, and I'll get into that. And also throughout the entire writing of this book. Okay. So like, I think that that's, kind of um, what travels alongside of like a ambitious person is an incredible self-doubt, and but ultimately what drives it is the purpose. And being deeply connected with the purpose, and the purpose of the film was to make sure that anyone that felt alone for the reasons that I talked about in the film, that they would know for a fact that they were not. And so yes, when I was making the film, I wondered, am I the only one that feels like this? Like, and after interviewing people, and I know that you probably, especially after 6 years, it's like when you're in the role of interviewer, and it's after a certain point, you start realizing there's some truths, there's some things that people say over and over again, and and you can definitively know that this is how most people feel, right? And so after interviewing as many people, right, for my film, I I began to realize that that indeed this is a shared experience, that 99.999 of us feel that we struggle with enoughness, whether it be around language. I feel like that's kind of where a lot of it lives, because it's just like an easy place for the mind to understand language as a barometer, unfortunately, of Latinidad, and the way that we police each other using language as a barometer for Latinidad, right? And so
Yeah.
that ends up, but there's so many other ways where we don't feel like we belong or like we're enough. And so these things are common and shared experiences. And so while I was making the film, yes, I wondered, but then there was a point when I realized, no, this is really important. But then I brought in my own story, which was not the plan. It was the idea of, at the time, my creative partner, who had, gone to the Oscars and who's very talented filmmaker. He said, if we share your story, share your specific story, this will be an easier story to tell. And it took me months to agree to that, because I'm like, there's no way that my story can hold this, because I felt so deficient and so also not enough. Like, I was literally, it was very meta. I couldn't see really the power of my own story. I didn't really get it until I was on the road, and on all of those stages, and realizing, and it wasn't like, oh, my story. It was more my willingness to be honest, which is terrifying every single time I do it.
Yeah.
And so that's the part where the self-doubt always comes. And then I just, pray that, like, I have the words to honor the story that I told in the film, and the story that I'm telling on the stage. And then, of course, the stories that I share in the book, that I can hold whatever reaction comes from it. But then I also, know that it honors what I'm trying to do, which is, the purpose of the book is urgent. It is not, it is the purpose of the book is not, and I hope is not to necessarily make people feel like they're not alone, although I want women to know they're not alone without a shadow of a doubt with the book. But the purpose of the book is to create agency around our own relationship with our power, our individual power, and our collective power as Latinas.
Yeah. I think that it's, I think a lot of times maybe it's like we know it, but we don't act on it because we're not secure in it.
Right.
I
Yes.
think that, yeah, that's kind of, yeah. Like we're like, we know what, and when you get around other Latinas, we're like, yes, yes. But then it's almost like as soon as we step away from it, then we're like, well, what do I do? What is
Yeah.
this right? Is this like that? All those doubts start kind of creeping in, or the double talk starts happening. And one of the things that you were talking about in the intro is when we go into these spaces, because we're taught to either to fit in, we're taught to not be too much, not be too loud, not make certain expressions, like all of these things. And look, I was raised, I will say this, my mom is a very strong woman, and she definitely raised me to speak up for myself. I distinctly remember a time I was like a Pop Warner cheerleader and two girls were kind of bullying me. And my mom was like, don't let them, no, you don't let them bully you. You need to say something back. If you don't say something, I'm going to say something, and you don't want me to say something. So,
Your mom sounds great.
yeah, I tell like anybody who's never met my mom, I joke that she's like a cartoon character come to life.
Oh my
And then they
gosh.
meet her and they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, she is. But
Wow.
so but it wasn't always like that, right? It was like I picked it. I became more self-confident. I didn't have a lot of confidence in myself because even though I was the oldest, I had confidence in where I stood with my family. But
Yeah.
outside of that, I didn't have it because again, a lot of my friends were other Latinos who they were first gen. They mostly spoke Spanish at home. And even my friends that weren't like my Filipino and Vietnamese, and they were all first gen. So they all spoke another language at home.
Yeah.
And so I always, and then I was chunky. And so I always
Mm.
felt like this insecurity about myself once I stepped out of the house. Like in
Yeah.
the house, I felt very secure in my place, in my family, and who I was. But as soon as and it was kind of like I faked it till I made it, I would always be like, oh, yeah, fine. Like if people probably would never have thought that I had that type of insecurity walking out the
Sure.
door. And then when I got to a place where I was secure with myself, then when I was big and proud, then going into corporate, I was told, no, that's wrong. Like not in those exact words, but basically you're being told how you're acting is wrong. Who you
Yeah.
are is wrong. You
Hmm.
having a big personality, nope, that doesn't fit in with us. That's wrong.
Yep.
And when I was reading that in the intro, I was just like, she's talking to me. Oh,
Oh,
I feel
yay.
every single word that she is saying right now.
Oh,
I want to, let's see, in the intro, there was something that really, okay, yes, this is really what it was. As Latinas, we're brought up with contradictory beliefs that are not meant to root us in shared culture, but often end up holding us back. These unspoken rules show up in how we discredit our very own existence. Exactly what I was saying. Like as soon as
mm,
I walked out that door, I wasn't secure in who I was.
mm,
Don't make everything about you. Don't be too successful. Don't ask for help. These
mm,
taboos are confusing because conflict and because they conflict with what success actually requires: visibility, ambition, and the willingness to seek support. Wine break. Time to refill that glass and come back for more Wine and Chisme. Ever wonder where you can find the wines I drink that are made by people who actually look like us? Mi gente, I got you covered because I created the first and most comprehensive director of Latina owned wine brands based in the United States. And yes, it is exactly as good as it sounds. From California to Puerto Rico and everything in between, I mean, we are talking about over 100 Latina owned wine brands, all in one place, ready for you to discover, sip, and support. This is the directory that I wish existed before I built it. So you never have to search far to find wines that represent our cultura, our gente, and our stories. So head over to the wineandchismepodcast.com to explore the full directory. The link is also in the show notes of every episode, so you have zero excuses not to check it out. Girl,
mm.
I read that and I like read that probably like three times
Whoa.
because
Wow.
I was like, that's what so often what we're told. And I think generally as women, we're told that, but particularly when you go into um, underrepresented communities, that's really like you're told that even more. And it may
Hmm.
not be verbal, but it's by actions. It's about how people look at you, how they treat you, how you're welcomed or not into rooms. This is
Hmm.
all being told to us in various ways. May
Hmm.
not be verbally, but people are telling us this in various ways. So I was just like, Oh my gosh, it's so true. And I think that so many of us, we read this and we're like, oh shit. But then also, like, you're right. It's like this whole conflicting thing. Like, you're not supposed to do these things, but these are the things that you need to really succeed. So you kind of throw your hands in the air and go, what the hell do we do?
Yeah. Yeah. And so there, going back to what you said about if you feeling a comfort, like you were in your comfort zone at home, like you kind of know, you know how to navigate it, right? You know your role, you understand. And then when you leave, though, there's something else. And that something else is where this collision happens. And that is, we're taught, and for me, I always thought it was me. And I feel like if I would have known this, and that's why I want this book to be in the hands of as many people as possible, and or people just talking about these things for the first time, especially our young Latina, right, who is just starting out. Let's say she's graduating college. I want her to know it is not you, and it was never you, mujer, right?
Yeah.
It is the collision of cultural values. That is what's going on. We were raised, regardless of if it's first gen, second gen, third gen, there's a common thread of collective value system, which is putting the family first. Simply, the most simply put, you put the family first. You don't make it about you, right? That is and so we say, "Cállate, te ves más bonita." That's like, I feel like the most famous, well-known phrase, right? That,
Yeah.
don't say anything. You're much more beautiful when your mouth is shut, right? And so these things get implanted with these sayings, right? All kinds of sayings, a varying amount of sayings. And then we notice the behavior of our moms, our tias, our cousins, and then we see how we're portrayed in the media, and then we understand that we understand the rule and the roles that we must play. And this is without discussion. This is just inherited, um, and just like this known way of behaving. And then when we get out, if we're lucky enough to go to college and to have a job in corporate, not lucky, let's say fortunate enough to have a good education, right? And then fortunate enough to move on and to be in spaces where we're going to make good money and trade our experience for our values for in exchange for money, right? The more successful we get, the more we collide with the value system of self reliance, which says, no, it's not the family or the group that's most important. It's the individual. And none of these things are spoken except for when you go in being your full self, right? And you go in and they're like, yeah, no, you're too much. You're too much. You're too loud. You laugh too loud. You dress too loud. You are too much. You have to tone it
Yep.
down. These things, I was told all of those things at many jobs. And then I experienced shame. And that's why I thought it was me. But what it was the self reliance. They have their own code of values. And you're supposed to self-advocate. You're supposed to abide by a certain set of rules, and that's how you're successful within the confines of corporate America, which is built on self-reliance with the individual at the middle. And so there is no surprise why Latinas would feel so deficient in corporate spaces. And frankly, it's the reason why I believe we are running out of corporate America and starting businesses faster than I believe any other group, because
Yep.
we can set our own rules, especially the first gens and the second gens and the third gens, because it's so damn confusing because no one has sat down and teased the whole thing apart. And that is the purpose of the book. There's one chapter that's devoted to this kind of professional thing that happens where I get into and explain all of this stuff so that we can finally see, like, oh, that's what was happening. This really wasn't me. And it's the reason. And now I understand what I need to do.
Yeah. I think there's so many, like, now that I've been involved with so many growing up, I will actually, let me kind of rewind. Growing up and I didn't have a lot of outside of my family, there weren't a lot of Latina role models. And the women who uplifted me were Black women.
Mm.
And I was very fortunate to have so many beautiful, amazing, strong, unbelievably smart, intelligent Black women who were like, come, like, let me show you the way,
Mhm.
right? And I think that, but when you become that person and you become the only kind of Latina in the room, it's almost like you're there, they expect you to represent everybody in the culture, but then they don't want to hear you.
Hmm.
And
I
that has
wish
happened to me so much.
I'm like bursting at the seams because I literally say that, and that's so many, and my own words, right? But basically, yeah, like they want you until it's inconvenient, is what I said in the book. When it's inconvenient, then they don't want you anymore.
Yeah. And
So,
that has totally been my story as well. And countless others, right? Like if this is my story, if this is your story, we know that
mhm.
there are millions of Latinas. I'm not even
Yes,
saying thousands. I'm saying millions of Latinas
mhm.
who have probably felt this, are feeling this, don't know what to do. And like you said, like I've already said, I don't ever want to go back into corporate America
Mm.
again. I
Same.
don't.
Yeah, I mean, yes, same. I did a really, I had a really fun consulting gig with an ad agency here in Denver that I talked about in the book and shared the story. The story is about machismo and how that kind of affected this campaign that we were working on. And yeah, I was like, I'll never do that again. It was so painful. And it was such a stark reminder of all the reasons that I walked away so many years ago. And it's like there's this version of me that feels so oppressed in that environment, even though I was a consultant. I mean, it's like, I felt like arm's distance, right? Except for
Right.
when there's a problem. And as soon as there was a problem, that's when, this whole story unfolded. It reminded me like, yeah, that's why, yeah, I feel the same. I'll never go back, knock on wood.
I know, right? I want to, if you're okay with kind
Yeah.
of getting into to the story, um, I feel like there is, and this is maybe not a universal thing, but I always feel like there's definitely something in that happens to us one way or another.
Yeah.
And you're talking about an instance that happened in your family when you were 9 years old,
Hmm.
that changed your family dynamic forever.
Hmm.
And I'm just gonna kind of paraphrase, and you can add or share more if you like. But you were, talking about the noises that you would hear every day, getting ready for school. This morning was different.
Mm.
You're getting ready, you hear your parents, arguing, but when you walk out, they're arguing a very different way, and your dad has a frying pan about to hit your mom,
Yeah.
and you lock eyes. You don't know what to do. You're just like, bye, walk out. And when he leaves, you end up going back in the house.
Hmm.
And you tell your mom everything's going to be okay. But before you walked in the house, you didn't know if she was alive or not. And you hug. Within a few days, you get called out of school. Your mom takes you out of school. You guys go to Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you talk a lot about when that came up at that conference that you were in Miami.
Yeah.
And because of the secrets that we hold, you couldn't share that with the person you were partnered with.
Hmm.
So that's why I was like, so when I say Denise gets vulnerable from go, she is vulnerable from go. Can you share how you feel like looking back, like it's something that's obviously you've held on to that affects you in some way, even if you didn't think, like you said, you didn't think about it, you didn't whatever, you didn't think it affected you until that moment. So tell us about that moment and whatever else you would like to share or not, that you were like, okay, I can't hold this in anymore. I have to share this, and how difficult that was.
Yeah. Yeah. So I, uh, so That story ended up coming out in my like pre-interview with Marshall Ganz in Boston. We were outside in the behind the Harvard Kennedy School, and I share in the book about how he kind of turned the tables on me without me realizing it. I mean, he's just an incredible human being in general, and his questions are very, there isn't a wasted moment with this man. Like we're going to go deep, we're going to get there fast, and we're going to have like a moment, a transformative moment. And I really admire that about him. And in his asking about me, wanting to get to know me, gets this story out for me about what happened that morning. And this is the kind of story that when people think about their life, looking back, there's like these touch points of events, and I'm totally going to cry, but like there are these touch points of events that happen in all of our lives. And we either understand like them, we have like a depth of understanding, and either we get it, or we get it sort of, or we're still sort of getting it, right? And with that particular story, I never really shared it. Part of me wondered if it even happened at all, and then I realized and got confirmation that indeed it did happen, and and then there was the making sense of it part. And what I in that conversation, he helped me make sense of it, but it still remained something that I didn't have an understanding of. And so when I started working on the book, I knew that this was a story I wanted to tell, because this is a story I didn't want to tell. And when all these women were sharing their stories with me, like sharing these secrets, right? I felt like they had 10 times more courage than me to tell me their own version of that story, right? Their own version of wondering whether someone had survived a moment or not, or their own version of like a domestic violence situation. I can't tell you how many times I heard that same kind of story. And I either held it, or I 100% of the time never said, I know what you're talking about. I never said or shared back that story. I just felt like, um, well, it just was something I wasn't willing to share. And so I knew when I was working on the proposal for the book that I wanted that story to be a story that was included in the proposal as part of a sample chapter. The only sample chapter was really just the telling of that story. And so it really wasn't until I finished the book, and a very famous author told me, we were sitting down, a very famous Latina author told me, one time we were having lunch here in Denver, and she said, you really won't know what your book is about until you write the last sentence of the book. And I was like, no, no, but I know what the book is about. It's about secrets, right? And she's like, yeah, but in the writing of the book, that will really gift you with what it's really about. And I didn't understand that until I wrote the last sentence of the book, and I didn't understand why the story had to go first, and why I needed to tell it. Because it's like an offering, but it's also like I I that story and that moment had so much power over me my whole life. And in the telling of it, on the page, and the sharing of it, now I've been able to get my power back from it, and really understand this purpose and this thing that I have, where I feel like I have to be a woman of consequence. And that's really what has driven my life for so long, is wanting to know that my life made an impact and that it made a difference. And really, it's because for decades I've wondered and thought and remembered that me as a little girl needed needed to know that my life would work out, right? And that this moment wouldn't be for naught. That this moment where my voice, like where I said bye, stopped what I thought was my father, um, you know, it looked to me in my 9-year-old mind like he was going to kill her. And that moment, that interruption that I was, saved a life. And that as a 9-year-old girl, I didn't get it. But as a woman now, I had this kind of desperate longing to want my life to matter so deeply. And and so the telling of that story helped me make sense of that part of me. And so sometimes we can be held prisoner, to these things, like I'm not going to say it's like I love the fact that I feel like I want my life to be purposeful and that my life is purposeful and that I have made this film that has helped many people, and at the same time it can shackle somebody and never make them feel like they've done enough or been enough, right? And it's because it's like this it also trapped me. And so in the understanding of that, I was able to see like, no, I can actually choose this. And so by sharing the story as my choosing it versus never quite feeling enough, like um, because because sometimes we can make these things up when we're little and like and and even though it feels honorable and it might seem honorable, it can have us feeling like we're not enough.
Yeah.
And does that make any sense at all? I
No,
feel
I
like
understand. No, I understand. And another thing that really hit me while I was reading it, and you just said it again, is, you want to have a life of consequence.
hmm
And I was thinking, girl, like the intro in this first chapter had me thinking so much. Like I was this is such a already just so powerful, but it had me thinking, and I was like, is that why I do what I do with Wine and Chisme? Like I
Oh.
always was like, I want to feel like I am doing something with my life, right?
Yeah.
I never want to be a void in this world. I want to feel like I am giving back, that that when I leave, that I've left something good.
Mm.
Because I'll never have like my own biological children. I had a hysterectomy, so it's not like I'm gonna have my grandkids and kids, like that. I've I but I was like, what I can, and because I am second gen, because I have always had this feeling of, is my Latinidad enough? Am I enough?
Mm.
Am I enough? It made me think, and I love my culture. I love what I do. I love my friends. I love my family. But it was the first time I thought, is that why I'm doing this? I mean, I love it. And I know initially, like on the, maybe I didn't dig so deep. It was just like, this is what I want to do because this is how I feel like I could give purpose. But then it made me think, like this, and girl, this is just like an hour before I got on this call with you. You have got me thinking so much. But it was literally like, is this maybe a deeper reason why I do what I do? Because I never felt like I was enough. And it was my way of showing appreciation to my culture in a way that I never thought I could.
Oh.
And I never thought of that before.
hmm
And I was just like, holy crap. And I swear I'm gonna go back and read like this whole intro and first chapter again because I was like on my iPad just like scrolling. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I mean, I went through it. So
Oh,
it's a very impactful but easy read so far.
thank you. Thank you.
So it's not like you're gonna read like what I've read. I haven't been like, what? What does that mean? It's been like, wait, what?
Uh-huh.
What does that mean? Like it hasn't been like, what? It's been
Uh,
like, wait, full stop, wait, let me read that again. I need to really absorb that. That's
wow.
that's the what and that I've gotten from that so far.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I'm just like, I'm floored by the beginning. I will say that in the best way possible. I am floored so far.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And going back to what you said, like, thinking about these things and thinking about like what is the reason, right? Like you in your own exploration of that, like the thing is, that's a good thing. Like, I really don't, I believe looking back at my own choices, everything, was leading up to this point. I kind of feel like we all have a sense of that that's the case, right? And like sometimes we can feel like, confused, like why haven't things worked out better than, or thank God I'm
Yes.
here. It could have been much worse. There's both sides to that, right? And when we can say, wow, like I think I'm here because i'm it's like an expression of this part of me that wants to contribute. And when we can look at it like that and then embrace it and say, I'm going to do this on purpose, actually, I have a better understanding of myself now. And I can say with all the ganas, right? Like, I'm here, this is my legacy. And when we can own that, that's when we can, we I don't it's not this isn't about finding our power, it's about reclaiming the power, right? That we forgot that we had. And
Yeah.
so in the first chapter or in the intro, wherever that was for you, it's like that the inquiry, the questioning, is by the end of the book, hopefully, right, we're at this place like, no, I can reclaim this. This I can own and be proud of, and then even share it out loud. Like, I'm here to help make a difference. And this podcast is part of my mission. That's like a powerful place to exist.
Girl, I'm telling you, mi gente, I can't wait for your book to come out, Denise. I'm going to be
Thank
freaking
you.
blasting it everywhere. I'm going to be like, you don't understand what this book, I just read the intro and first chapter and what it has already done for me. What is it doing? Seriously, I don't on it, and I do love to read. I don't read probably as often as I used to and as I should,
Yeah.
but I will say whether it's fiction or nonfiction or self-help, whatever it is, you have to feel a connection to it, right? You have to be able to have an ease of being able to share your story that impacts people. What you've done with Project Enyé and what you've done with this book thus far that I've seen, like, yes. And I love that it's being published by Simon and Schuster, which is a really big publishing house that I think most, probably one of the few that people would actually like know off of the top of their head. Can you
Yeah.
share like how that came to be? Because obviously there's not a lot of people, let's say from the global majority, right? That are that are in these really large houses. Oftentimes they have to go to smaller houses or independent publishers. So I love that Simon and Schuster is your publisher. Can you share
Me
how that
too.
process was?
Yeah, yeah. And so yes, so well, in the intro, I mentioned a group that I started, right? It was about um probably like less than a year after the film came out. And I called it the Enya Dream Accelerator. And it was because of all the women that I was meeting on the line of Secrets and Dreams. And people were reaching out to me like in droves, wanting to talk about what they wanted to do and businesses they wanted to start and encouragement that they needed, that they were hungry for from a Latina. This was 10 years ago. This, what we see now, was just non-existent then. And so I started this like the first cohort of this group. And part of being in the group, we did all kinds of exercises. And one of them, I feel like a lot of people know like this kind of future self idea, right? And so we all had journals, and everyone was supposed to write like, I'm so grateful that I am, right? And so this is a practice that I did for, on and off, and I've done for many, many years. And I am an award-winning filmmaker, something that I wrote in many, many, many journals before the movie ever happened. And I wrote, I am a New York Times bestselling author. And where I kind of fixated while coaching that group. And so I have so many journals that start off, I would write, 10 different things. And oftentimes that was the number one thing. And so whether or not the bestseller status ever happens, the actual author part was at the time very far away from what I was doing, even though what I was doing was also very unique to me at the time. I was a stay-at-home mom before I started working on the film. And so And so I definitely feel like that had a lot to do with it, right? I was kind of pulling this new identity in as writer. And so right around the pandemic, I was looking to see, I think it was 2021, a very large, not Simon Schuster, but another very well-known publisher reached out to me and asked me if I wanted, if I had ever considered writing a book. And I thought it was a joke. I thought I was getting like, I thought, like, how dare someone do that? How dare someone write an email to somebody and mess with their mind this way, right? And he reached out to me on LinkedIn and didn't have a picture. And so I was like, who doesn't have a picture? You know,
You're
like
all
if you're gonna,
spam.
yeah, like God. And so I was in the office with at the time I shared an office with our editor and he's like, yeah, but what if it's real? I'm like, this could never be real. And so I started Googling him, and lo and behold, he actually is an acquisitions editor at a very large publisher, big one. And so I wrote back to him, and the next morning we were on a call, and I told him about this idea, and it was about, you know, what the book is about, but it was a less refined version of it. And and that set things off. And what I needed at the time was an agent. He's like, okay, well, you're going to need an agent and you're going to need to write me a book proposal. And at the time, I was like, you know, speaking like crazy. I was speaking, constantly flying all over the place. And so I got an agent because it's, I will say I'm very privileged to have gotten an agent pretty quickly.
Because
And
it's
when
really hard, right? It's really hard to get a book agent.
it is. And but when you come with it with a publisher knocking at your door, it's a lot easier. And so,
Hmm.
you know what? I've had my share of struggles in my life, and I kind of feel like, well, you know what? This it's nice to have something come easy, right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like I've put the work in, and also, you know, like my life has is a good even is evened out. And so yes, that did not come with a lot of effort. However, I was needing to write the proposal, and so that is the work I did. It took me a lot longer than I ever thought. It took about I'm going to say 15 months or so to write it. And at one point, a lot of it, I got very stuck in the process. My perfectionism got the better of me. And also because I started realizing as I was working on the proposal that what I was going to have to do, you know. And when you remarked about it, me going there and being very authentic right from the get-go, like I had this sense that this isn't going to work if I just talk about these things theoretically. And I definitely can't share the secrets that have been shared with me. I would never do that. I need to lay
Right.
myself bare. That's how this is going to new. I knew that that's what it was going to take, and it scared me. And so that delayed the finishing of it. And then I actually needed to hire a coach to help me over the finish line. And so she's like, Dee, you don't really need that much, but you do need help here, 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 and here. And so thank goodness I worked with her and she helped get it over the finish line. You know, what happened was I don't have any regrets, or I try not to. I have to remind myself of that when I feel regret next time. But like, um, the proposal did go to them because they had rights, exclusive rights to accept or, you know, to give me an offer in a certain amount of time.
First right of refusal.
Yeah. And so the offer unfortunately wasn't after working so hard on it. And this is like a really important lesson that I felt at some point, you know what? I'm gonna really, really go there. I'm gonna give this everything I have, and this is worth more than what they're able to offer at this time. And I turned down their offer. And that's at that time was a really big risk because no, you know, there wasn't a line of people that were going to give me a book deal. It was only this one publisher and this one imprint. But something inside of me knew I just wasn't ready to settle. And I will
Right.
say so many times in my life, I have settled. I will say specifically in relationship with, well, certain jobs, bosses, and men. And I have gone against my gut instinct so many times that I knew exactly what I was saying no to. And I knew exactly what I had been betraying. And I done at that point so much work on this book that there was no way I was going to. hear myself want to take the deal, be grateful, like no one ever gets an opportunity like this. I'm still in this tiny little percentage of people that could get this opportunity. How dare I walk away, right? And then but list decide to listen to that part of me that said, you know what? No, like I trust myself and this book and the promise of this book that are on these 57 pages of this proposal that someone will see value well past what this number is that I'm hearing from this publisher right now. And so that happened in December, and then the book went out. The vernacular is it goes out on submission. And so there was this list of editors that it was shared with at the end of January. And actually, it's funny. It's oh my gosh, it's so funny. This is happening right now. I just realized the date. Literally right now, 2 years ago, is when the book was many publishers were interested, and it looked like it was going to go to what's called like an auction, and that means like several publishers want in and they're willing to go to this point where they start throwing out numbers, and then it creates this frenzy, and then whoever has either the biggest number or the author gets to decide, like, is it the publisher that has the biggest number, or is it or is it going to be the editor that they want to work with, or some combination. And it was at that point that Simon and Schuster came with what's called the preemptive offer, which is a number that is like a Godfather thing, like an offer I couldn't refuse kind of number. And luckily, the editor is the only person on the list that I wanted to work with. She was a dream to me. It's like my daughter's going to college, and we have her dream college. To me, this woman, her name is Michelle Herrera Mulligan, and she's at Primero Sueño Press. It's her imprint under the Atria banner in Simon and Schuster. And she, to me, was the mountaintop. And it was her that I wanted to work with. I knew that she could take the story and that she could take my heart, basically. I could trust her with it. And
Right.
I felt like the sense that, and we'd only met each other one time, but I knew, just like we all
Yeah.
know, and if we're lucky enough, we get to respond to that knowing. And I said, if she wants to work with me, I will work with her. And then she ended up making this offer, and I felt like meant to be. And so 2 years, right around now, literally, I think I found out on Valentine's Day. Well, I knew it was February 6th was the day that I knew she would make a preemptive offer, and that was a Friday because we were going to see Billy Joel in New York City. That was my gift to my daughter at the time, to see Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden, and that was February 6th, 2 years ago. And then it was February 14th that I accepted the offer.
Good
So
for
that's a
you
story.
for saying that. No, that's so awesome because how I know how many times have we said to ourselves, well, I should I don't complain, don't complain. People, like you said, people have it worse. I could have it way worse. Da-da-da. Like we talk ourselves out of following what we should, like we negate our own gut feelings by saying, oh, well, we should be this or we should be that. And I'm so happy you didn't do that. That is so awesome. That's
Thank you.
congratulations to you.
Thank you.
How do your kids feel about how did they feel when Project Enya came out? Did they feel like any resonance to it? And also, now that you're having the book, are they like, giving you like that's my mom moment? Are they how are they feeling with all of that?
Yeah, well, everything's when they were so young. My girls are in high school. I have a junior and a senior, and the film came out 10 years ago, and we were in production for about 18 months to 2 years. And so my girls were in elementary school when all of this started. So they don't have an understanding of me and our life without Project Enya. And the movie is actually called Being Enyé, which and then the we kind of created this like other entity called Project Enya to kind of house that in, but it's often confused, and I'll never do
Yeah.
anything like that again. But in any case, the but so they don't know anything else. And so because of that, and because like at home I'm their mom, and I've never, like I want my identity with them to be their mom. And then they know that I also have this other thing. And so like, with the movie and traveling so much, that was very, very hard. And so I had made them a promise that I would never be gone for more than two sleeps. And that was like kid language. And so
Yeah.
whenever I would leave, I would only be gone that long. And so, and mostly I was able to keep that promise, but that was really the only time that they ever pushed back because honestly, their dad would take them to ice cream. He would have pizza every night. He would go and give them donuts every morning. So like at one point they were just like, when she's gone, we get to eat whatever we want. We don't have to clean up. We get to have pizza. So like he made it very
You know,
fun
it's
for
so
them.
funny about, I think that's a dad thing because me and my youngest sister played travel softball and my middle sister didn't play. So
Uh-huh.
when we were on tournaments, that's what he would do with my sister. He would take her out, he would
There you
dote
go.
on her. And so when we were gone, she got all our dad's time, got super spoiled. So
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a thing when it comes to dads and daughters when somebody has to go. Because my mom would usually travel with my youngest sister, and I would go by myself unless we were in the same tournament in the same area.
Yes.
Denise, I want to make sure if there's something I didn't ask, if there's something else that you want to share, like you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks for asking. So I don't know when this is going to come out. Part of me wishes it was coming out tomorrow. So like people could hear. And I know that you have a whole schedule to manage. And so but I do know that we picked this date or that we talked about this so that it would come out before the book comes out. So I'd love
Yes.
to share a little bit about the book coming out. And that is the book comes out on August 18th. And so like right ahead of Hispanic Heritage Month. And the reason why that day was chosen was so that people could read the book before Hispanic Heritage Month began. Now, a lot of stuff has happened in our community since these ideas, right? And so right now, there's a lot of companies that aren't even celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month at all. However, I know our community still celebrates, and we still figure out ways to celebrate inside of that month and outside. And so there's a few ways that people can support the book, and one is to buy it on pre-sale. There's well, the more books that are pre-purchased, the more excitement, that's how excitement is measured through people pre-ordering the book. And so once there are, like a certain, once this flurry happens, then the publisher has a sense of, oh, this book people are excited about. And then they can, choose to well understand that that's going to happen and perhaps order more books, right? If there's time to order more books, so that more books will be available when the actual book is released. And also there's a really, really big, and this goes for all the books that are written by Latina authors and Latino authors, that unless we embrace the books that are written by our culture, right? Like we're the ones that are going to save ourselves, right? And so the way that we show support is by with the dollar and or by taking it out of the library. And so I know that I certainly there's something that I share in the book that I've already begun to share publicly, and that is how when the DEI cuts happened, I lost over $200,000 in speaking revenue. And
Gosh.
it happened slowly and painfully over about 18 months. And I share the story. I wasn't planning on sharing the story. It was horrible. And at the time, and I really believe that had that not happened and had that not been so difficult for me, the book would not be, I wouldn't be as proud as I am of the book because I really, really, really chose to be completely honest and share that there was a time when I was, so successful and that it all came crashing down. And that is a very real thing and that we should not be embarrassed that life happens and it happens to all of us. And I was willing to share it in the book because I'm so much bigger than those circumstances, and
Yeah.
that our talents transcend circumstance, right? And that's a lesson that I needed to learn and remember, and a lesson that I wanted to share with others. And so, with that said, I know sometimes that a $29 book is maybe not on someone's plans, right? And so, another way that they can help me is by going to Goodreads and just clicking this button that says want to read. And so if you go to what will they say on Goodreads, just under the picture of the book, there's a button that says want to read. And if you click that book, then Goodreads will will acknowledge that book as a book that people want to read. And when they do their roundups, like, hey, these are great books to read for the summer, great summer reads or great fall reads or great, anticipated reads. If it gets to a certain number, then I have a chance of making that list. And then finally, if you work at a company and you would like this conversation to either be a part of your ERG group or part of your conference, I have a version of it that's more general market that gets into this, the very last chapter of the book, and how I tie it all together is with an idea that my daughter gave me. And she didn't know she was giving me the idea. She was just telling me about school. But there was something that she said about her day and in her physics class that kind of, whoosh, to me, brought it all together. And so it's a physics concept, and it's a physics concept called thermal equilibrium. And it's this idea that in the places where we keep secrets. Now, this is the connection I made to this idea. In the places that we keep secrets in our lives, those are very cold, cold areas, right? Areas that I am not going to share with you, right? Like, I wasn't willing to share back with anyone about these things because I call them like I had them in cold storage, right? And that's just the shelf that they lived on. And this idea of thermal equilibrium is letting the warmth back in and letting these things thaw out and being willing to let the heat move back into our life and the warmth back into our life, and remembering that we are safe, and that the only way for me to like be my fullest self right here in this interview, or representing the book that I wrote and being a representative of our community and everything that's going on, is if I warm up all those cold spaces enough and show you what's possible when you stand just like in your most truest self. And what I'm not saying is to unabashedly share all your secrets, but what I am saying is that it's a worthy activity to thaw out some of these belief systems that we have about what part of you you're not willing to be known for.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. As a reminder, the book is called What Will They Say? And what I say is you better go get the book because, like
Thank
I
you.
said, I've only read the intro and chapter one. But if you have been listening this whole time, you will like Denise. I don't know the last time a book affected me so much. And I've only
Oh,
read those two things. Like, I've only read the intro and chapter one. Like,
wow.
I'm not kidding when I say that. Like, the effect that minimal interaction with the book that I've had has already had on me. I cannot wait to get the book in my hands.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so
I
much.
need to
Well,
read the whole thing
thank you.
ASAP.
Oh my gosh. Well, here's another way that people can read it if they're like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta get this book." I'm just actually about, I teased it in my this week's newsletter, and I am creating a street team with a launch team with the book. And as a member of the launch team, you will receive a galley of the book, a digital galley of the book, and you'll have a chance to read it from beginning to end, well before the book comes out. And the only thing that I'm asking people is also to buy a copy of the book when they can, and they can buy it in any of the forms, and that they write a review of the book, and like whatever. Honestly, they can write anything they want. Hopefully it's good. But but that would be, and then to obviously just share it. So if any of your listeners want to be a part of that, they can email me and let me know, and I'll give you a way for people to do that.
Yes, we'll do that. And are you going to do a book tour when this comes out?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I actually
Can
have a
I
meeting.
host one?
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I would love that. Yes, let's do it. Let's definitely do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down so we can talk about that. I am going to need that, and it's a 2 week tour right now, and it's going to happen sometime in the 4 weeks of Hispanic Heritage, and so I'm not really sure exactly where I'm going to go yet. That's all to be TBD. But yeah, like I need volunteers that would be willing to play a role as host, very similar to what we're doing now, and
Yeah.
to have an even deeper conversation because I can't wait until you read the rest. And I just appreciate so much, just it's a scary thing. It's such a scary thing to be, I would say, like a creator, right, of any kind,
Yeah.
and to wonder, like, is this going to help as many people as I hope it will? And so you just sharing how much it's helped you so far, I'll never forget how I feel right now, just how much appreciation I have for you taking the time to read it and to reflect so beautifully as you have.
Well, I wouldn't say it if I didn't feel it. So I appreciate you sharing it. Like I said, I didn't want to kind of do the traditional thing that I normally do because I feel like you share a lot in that first chapter of the book. But like I said, there was just between, the film and the book, there was just so much there that I just wanted to like get into it. And
Awesome.
Denise, it did not disappoint. I want to say thank you for trusting me with that first chapter because it really is beautiful and I can't wait to see how many people this book is going to impact truly.
Thank you so much. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate
Mi
that.
gente will make sure to put in all of the information in the show notes if you want to participate in the street team, links to say that you want to read the book, all of the things, her social, everything will be in the show notes. So until next time.
Hola, mi gente. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Wine and Chisme podcast. If you would like to hear more wine and more chisme, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Saludos.